Hello, Ila. It is such a pleasure to meet you and speak to you. I'm Aiman. I'm based in Cardiff. I'm Welsh Pakistani, and I had the pleasure of watching India's first best trans modeling agency. And I wrote a little review for you as well. Um, yes,
Thank
I'm really
you.
excited for you to read it. I had nothing but great things to say about the documentary. As a queer person and a gender queer person, I also work a lot with the trans community in Cardiff, and I work with trans South Asians in the performing arts. So it meant a lot to me personally. And I was really curious to know. So you've mentioned that you had this idea because you were you've always been surrounded by trans people. Like you've got a community of trans people in the UK, and also when you were in India. And I was really keen to know more about, like, because you've dedicated 7 years to this, haven't you? I'm really keen to know more about like how this came about, and did you expect that you'd be working on this for so long?
No, so the first part, how did this sort of come along? Yes, I lived in Brighton and I had a lot of LGBTQ friends and including
Hmm.
trans friends. I would say that it wasn't something that I had sought after, but they were my friends. They were my friends. And so I was aware, very aware of the situation in the UK with trans recognition and things, from a personal front too. And India, no, I didn't know any trans people or any LGBTQ people at all in India at all. But it just happened that me and one of the producers was in India and we were filming, and India had just come up with a legal recognition for trans people.
Hmm.
It became one of the first few countries in the world to recognize. And there was I'd seen trans people. Now I would say that was a child. I was young when I left India and I wasn't quite sure but um, yeah, because Hijra is a identity that is around in India big time. You're blessed by Hijras as soon as you're born.
Hmm.
They are there, but they're called the Hijras, and that's how I understood it. And then when we were there in India at that time, soon after India's legally recognizing trans people, a third gender, that's what they recognized. And
Hmm.
I felt that this was big. And all the Hijra women that I was seeing on the street, I was like, that's a trans woman. That's a trans woman. Yeah, okay,
Hmm.
cool. So that's big. And that, like, I feel it was a lot spurred by what was happening over here,
Hmm.
that I was like, this is a big story and I must cover it. And so
Hmm.
I called up Rudrani, and she was literally the first trans person I met in India. And we got along super well. And she was also like, I could see the fact that I could see her just as a trans woman without having the whole Hijra identity big playing out. So she really opened up and told me about the dream to start a modeling agency from the very first day that I met her. You know?
Wow.
Yeah, for the first time. So I was like, okay, cool. And that was the thing about it. It felt such an inspiring time. Do you know? It felt like, yeah, things that about to change. But then, so that's how it started.
Hmm.
But to come to your second question, which was about did I think that it would go on for 7 years? No, no, definitely no. But it was not, no, I didn't feel that at all. I am a journalist and I had felt that it could be a short story, but like as I got more pulled into their world and there was
Hmm.
so much more, there was
Yeah.
so much more that I couldn't stop filming. Let's put it like
Yeah.
that. Honestly, I couldn't stop filming. So kept going back between projects, between, do jobs and then go back again and film. And yeah, I got so pulled into their lives and their ambition to start the first trans modeling agency that
Hmm.
7 years went past.
Well, it's pretty evident like how much this meant to you. And also you did form a genuine friendship with Rudrani, didn't you? So that like must have made it that much more like emotional and deep for you. And I'm glad personally that you followed their journey for so long, from them just speaking it into an idea. And now I can Google Rudrani and see her like pictures. And in the documentary itself, it was lovely seeing Chandni, or was it Chandi, to go from, oh, I'll just come, I'm not sure, to be like, I want to be a model as well. It was like I felt really blessed to be able to see these stories, because you're right, like marginalized communities like struggle to open up about their stories because they're so often misinterpreted. Um, and even though this was like, filmed and set in India, and the Hijra culture, or Khwaja Sira as we also call it in Pakistan, has been so old and rooted into the like South Asian continent. As this movie is screened onto Welsh cinema, I'm curious to know, what do you think people here in Wales, or Welsh people, can take away from this?
I would say that I would expand it to be, like I feel that there's a particular resonance for people, queer people, and for people who are of a South Asian descent, because we've heard these words, and we know this identity, which has from from living, man. Like I know that it's stuff that has impacted people's lives over
Mhm,
here as much. Do you know? Like there are identities that
mhm,
are put onto them. But I don't know, all the Welsh people, what could they take away? I mean, I hope they take away an understanding of a community, which might
mhm,
sound exotic, but is as humane and as relatable, which has been the aim of the film, really, to make it
mhm,
accessible and relatable. The whole hope was for it to have a universal appeal, to talk about things like trust and respect and, family and things
mm.
like that, which resonate with everybody.
Absolutely. Like what you said about, not seeing like this seems exotic, but it's really important to sort of demystify and humanize it. And what you said about India being one of the first countries to legalize a third gender, I think Pakistan also legalized that as well. So you can get it on your passport. And it sounds really progressive, and it is, but obviously, like as we know in practice, the way that the society treats this doesn't, like, it's not as simple as that you will definitely get these rights fulfilled, like as they say on paper. um Rodrani's guru, she was talking about the impact of the Hindu conservative government on the Hijra community, and how she could advocate for them, like from a religious point of view. I found that really interesting because it's quite the opposite, like here in the UK, isn't it? It like religion isn't really something that people can use to advocate for trans rights here. And you would think that a conservative government is less tolerant, but obviously she explained that like some people view like like the Hijra identity as very separate from what we call LGBTQ. And I'm really keen to hear more thoughts of yours on that, because I guess that's like a political perspective people here don't really know about.
Yeah, yeah. So number one, when you say that we wouldn't use religion over here to try to explain a trans identity, that's absolutely understandable because the trans identity is not linked with religion over here, whereas in
Mm,
India and Pakistan, as you say, that like it is linked with religion. Um, yeah, so now how this has played out in time from the recognition to where it is with the easy fact that they could get recognition through a right-wing Hindu government. However, they love the idea
mhm,
of in India right now, they love the idea of a holy Hijra, but has it opened things up for a
mm,
modern trans person? No.
mm,
No, not at all. So it's, I mean, and I hope that my film shows that sort of like contradiction and where in like, yeah, that's exactly what has happened. A conservative Hindu government has said that we recognize, but the paperwork and everything that had been going on to try and get this recognition was from years before, and that was towards a modern trans identity, and that was for a wholesome, more bigger identity,
mhm.
and not just a religious identity. So has this
Mhm.
made anything much simpler in terms of getting work, in terms of acceptance, in terms of schools? No, no,
Mhm.
because unless a child is going in there and being a holy Hijra, it
Mhm.
doesn't really help, you know? So no, I don't know if I don't know if that answers your question, but like, no, it doesn't. It really
Yeah.
doesn't. It sounds sweet to think that, oh my God, religion can do that if you're a religious person. But
Mhm.
no, it was a big ploy of, uh, they have used religion entirely and given acceptance. So like Lakshmi Narayan Tripathi, Rudrani's guru, was this incredible, well-known, internationally well-known activist who was the lead petitioner for the third gender recognition, who has
Mm.
completely turned into somebody who's like leading mass rallies to bless. And that was some of the footage that hadn't made it to the film, but the things I saw were incredible and filmed. Yeah.
Mm. Because of course it's quite limiting, isn't it? If only a few amount of people can get that recognition and respect. And obviously, there surely there are Muslim hijras that would have a very different point of view in India about how they can advocate for their rights.
Absolutely. And this was something that that's been a political reality that's changing in India. So the time when hijras really had the best circumstances for them were when it was the Mughal Empire and they were
Hmm.
guarding zenanas, like, so that's the time that it comes from. And when I start filming, and that's how I note that as one of the ways that India has changed, the hijras used to always greet each other with Assalamu alaikum,
Mhm.
and that changed in this time to a big Hindu god greeting.
Mm.
So
That's really interesting.
it really was. It was just something that, like, that's why I made it a point in the earlier part of the film. I have a couple of times when they are greeting each other with Assalamu alaikum, to hopefully be able to compare it to Lakshmi, where it completely changed. It completely changed. So I don't know. I can't say for sure because I don't have actual, a real person who I can quote at this point of time to say how things have become harder for Muslim trans people in
Mhm.
Delhi. But that's what I sensed. Yeah.
Mhm. I found that the South Asian diaspora here who um, struggle with sometimes contradicting issues than like queer people who live in their country. Well, I say their country in South Asia. Obviously, the UK and Wales is also their country if they live here. And if people are born and raised here, they probably are not aware of the religious and cultural history of queerness, specifically of the Hijra or Khwaja Sira identity. And so this learning about it is it's very validating for South Asians here because it a lot of us, and you might be familiar with this, have this misconception that being queer and being South Asian are like separate things and they can't go hand in hand because that is the view or the misconception that's sold to us. And so to learn that actually there is a historical community and there's like religious legitimacy, not just in what we call Hinduism today and Islam, but also like cultural legitimacy. It's very empowering for trans people here. Is that something that you anticipated people would feel watching your movie?
Um, no, no.
No. Okay.
No, it's interesting to hear that from you. It's very
Hmm.
interesting to hear that it makes people feel empowered to feel that that was, yeah, it's very interesting to hear you say that because I have also worked quite a bit interacted with people from the LGBT South Asian communities in Britain. And what I heard from them a lot more than them feeling empowered by the idea of a hijra, particularly if they saw my film. Goodness, sorry, sorry. It made you feel that's what it came for you, and that's fair. But no, it was just like, my mom said that I'm a hijra. oh, you're behaving like a Hijra. And then they did have to
Mm,
look it up. And so no, I don't know. I don't know. But it's very interesting to hear you say that
mhm.
from watching my film, that you found it empowering in the portrayal of a traditional Hijra identity. You found it empowering. It's amazing. It's nice to hear.
I think the element, if it's specifically, it's that in actually all over the world, being transgender or being queer is portrayed as something that's like a new trend. Uh, something
Mm,
that people have just come up with in the past few decades and made up. And so learning that actually being queer as an identity in different forms has existed in many different like parts of the world. It's not
yeah.
just India and Pakistan, but Indonesia and I think Thailand as well, and
But
also in.
listen, but like that's the thing with I don't know about Quadra theory, but like with Hijra,
Mhm,
that's what made it complicated because they believe not them to be just queer people or choosing a
mhm,
different gender identity, but hermaphrodites,
mhm,
intersex people.
mhm,
There's a big difference.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And you did also say in the documentary, or was it Rudvania that said that it's not just the intersex people that form the community. So it's not necessary that people who are part of the community are born intersex, right?
No, not at all. So that's not,
Mhm,
but that's what the 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 society recognizes them as. This was the
mm,
only space that opened the doors to to gender fluid trans people, particularly from a lower income background in India,
mhm,
you
mhm.
know, and they
Yeah.
accepted them and they had these traditional ways of working. So to the world, to the community around, they are a Hijra, thinking
Mhm,
that they're intersex. The number of
mm,
times that I filmed going with people just like, again, this is not material that made it to the film, but like literally asking people on traffic lights when they'd come and beg, they would go, I'd ask not, just people in Delhi who I was traveling with kind of a thing, and who are they? And they'd be like, that's not a real Hijra, that's just a boy dressed like a girl.
I see, I see. So like the society, like it sort of puts people in boxes, like who gets to have this identity legitimately and who doesn't. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and I think legitimacy
So,
is
so
really
basically,
important.
I don't particularly feel that that wasn't the intention of trying to make it seem like it was the intention was to show that this is, let's not exoticize there. So it's
Hmm.
interesting to be having this conversation with you now. Do you, like, let's not exoticize there. It's not very romantic. It's something that
Hmm.
is actually limits people quite a lot.
Hmm.
Like, yes, has been a traditional long story idea of a wider gender spectrum,
Hmm.
but it is complicated when you try to vouch for all of that through religion.
I think it's really important. Like, obviously, watching something on your screen is great, but having it screened in like a cinema space or a theater space, so to speak. And like, do you have any such opinions on that? Like, why it's important for people to come together and watch something that's being screened? Like,
Hmm.
yeah.
It's a big power in that, like it is. I do think that you can then open the space up if you've seen something which is having, just even us having this conversation with Sandira is what different things people can take away from a film. Do
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Like how
Yeah.
different it can be. And it's interesting for me as a filmmaker, it's very interesting to see. But as a community, I think it's so good. Like, I mean, my ideal audience, if I can find them, is the South Asian dads.
Yes,
I want them
yes.
to watch the film. Do you like because they'll have ideas of what a Hijra is and stuff, and they might find it empowering or might find it limiting as well. Do you know, like, and see their own child if they are trans to be seeing them as who they are. But I
Hmm.
feel like it just sort of opens up, it opens up conversation, having a film like this, which is personal for so many people, do you know? And so much like it becomes a relatable thing for so many people to then have a space to discuss it, you
Mhm.
know, rather than just
Yeah.
go back home and go like,
Yeah. I mean, I remember myself as well after watching it. I was like, "Oh God, like I wish I," because obviously it wasn't screened yet, so it was only for myself. I remember wishing that I could then like really like talk and discuss to others about it. It's must be really great, like actually seeing people's like live reactions to your film.
absolutely. It's like, you know, when you asked me before, what's the thing about showing it in community and in like a
Mhm,
theater kind of a thing? It is seeing, I can't tell you how happy it makes me when I see that, when I see people laughing with the Hijras and them getting a bit like, when I can see the actual reactions and it's not just happening on
mhm,
somebody's TV screen, which is, it's precious. I love
mhm.
it.
Yeah, I'm also keen to like know more about like you as a filmmaker, like outside of this documentary. You've also described yourself as a journalist. Would be really keen to hear about your journey as a filmmaker slash journalist, leading up to the like when you decided to film India's first best trans modeling agency, and then after as well.
Yeah, so I have always I worked in broadcast quite a bit. I work for a lot of current affairs shows. I've done a fair few dispatches on Channel 4, ITV exposures. So I like to do work on films with a strong social based on social reality, do you know, like we're looking at things and that can be investigations, but it can also be observational. I worked on both. So so I have been a filmmaking journalist for a very long time, do you know, like for a fair few years, over 10 years.
Mhm,
And then that's how I found myself in India with a camera in hand. I do, you know, like, and this was, like I said before, like I had read about India recognizing a third gender, and I felt like I wanted to film that. I wanted to film how that's impacted the community. And it just became a lot more. I got pulled into sort of doing that and started developing like a feature film, which has been amazing to sort of do a journey with, where at some point you'd go like, this is a story, a full story that I want.
mhm,
It's not just a report, you know, it's not just a bit of a snapshot into some reality, but a journey through the characters and developing it. And because it went on for so long that it wasn't like everything else stopped. Carried on working in broadcast over here. I did a fair few more dispatches, do you know, like I carried on working. And that's pretty much where I am right now as well. It's
mhm,
wonderful to see this film take a life and be seen by people, which has been such a journey to be making it and
mhm,
share it around widely. And I'm loving the theatrical experiences that come with
mhm,
seeing this film. It feels great to have them.
mhm. I was wondering if you had like any other like feedback or advice even for other aspirational filmmakers in Wales who have yet to start.
Yeah, yeah, and I really mean this. Go out and bloody film it. No, but no, I
Go out
mean
and
this
film
as
it.
very, very genuine advice, okay? You need to go out and if you think that this is a story that is pulling you, go out and film it. Go out and film as, start it. Start it. Things feel
Mhm,
much better when there is audiovisual to back it than
mhm,
just an idea of a story. After which, that's literally how I got funding because I had
mhm.
already filmed quite a bit.
So you had already filmed part of it.
Absolutely.
Oh wow, okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't
You
go
need
in
to
there with a blank this thing of this is what I would do. Go in
mm.
there with some material that you can show and then you would be supported much more. Yeah.
That's great, and I hope people take after that as well. But yeah, it was such an honor meeting you. Like I'm genuine huge fan of the film, and I was really, really excited to like be able to actually speak to the mind behind it. So thank you for your time and your
Thank
energy.
you. Thank you
And
for your kind words, and I'm so
yes,
happy. Can't wait
yes.
to share wider.